My old school days. Do things ever change? My old school days. Do things ever change? All rights reserved by Zelda and Associates at 2025.
When asked if I know any famous people, I always refer to Central High School, which I attended with Prince. Although he was older, he said the occasional hi when we were in the hallway. When I take my trip down memory lane, I also recall another interesting event from school I clearly remember to this day. When I attended school, I was short and curvy, not fitting the Eurocentric beauty standards many seem to adore during that time period. I missed all the markers. I was short, very voluptuous, hips and all. I had my own BBL before people cosmetically added them. To top it off, I had full lips, which were not exactly in style either. When you are young, you look at yourself and always find a reason to be a bit self-conscious. I was no different, which was another reason for my quiet demeanor. On the bright side, I was a fairly bright young lady, although quite nerdy and very quiet. As I walked the log castle-like brown hallways with sporadic white and beige tile and the similar-looking staircases, I thought about my upcoming classes. The huge staircases formed large decorative shiny brown banisters that were so wide, both hands would barely enable you to grab hold. On the other hand, my brother, Anthony, was absolutely one of the popular kids. He was slender yet muscular, average height with smooth caramel skin and sparkling eyes. He was popular with the girls, always sporting his white furry apple hat and white leather coat. He had a phenomenal way with the ladies. In those days, the popular boys wore furry apple hats, as Minneapolis was and still is quite cold during the winter months. He wore the latest fashion and finished his look with the white apple hat and white leather coat. The girls flocked to him as a bee to honey. The school week had begun, and I walked the long stretch of hallway to my class. The hall appeared as though you could briskly run the 50-yard dash and have room to spare. Moving from one class to another heading for the massive staircase, I overheard a discussion. A group of girls were boasting how they planned to get this guy. They were definitely interested in a boyfriend situation. I just listened as they continued their conversation. My mind drifted to thoughts of class when I heard one say, "That white hat and white leather coat." Oh. I paused and instantly knew who they were speaking about. These were the rough girls. They had scars on their face and arms from fighting and close-cropped hair. I noticed they wore 2 pairs of knee-high socks, different colors, which symbolized some type of gang affiliation. They continued talking as though I was invisible, and I suppose to some students I was. I headed up the steps to class, excited to do a minor experiment in biology. In the midst of my experiment, I saw Anthony through the wall of windows which surrounded my biology classroom. He mouthed and pointed for me to meet him at my locker after school. At the locker, he asked me to tell our parents that he would be going to Phelps Field and he would be home later. I said okay, and at the corner of my eye, I noticed one of the rough girls who had been discussing Anthony earlier glanced at me. I continued to stack some of my books on the top shelf of the gray metal locker, retrieved my coat dark red woolen coat, and wrapped my woolen scarf around my neck. I locked my locker and headed home. The next day I sang as I went to my locker. I remember being able to open it with one hand. I put my coat and scarf on the center hook, grabbed my books and notebooks, and headed to class. The day was like any other. It was now 3rd period, and I had to make a mad dash to the bathroom. My biology teacher, Mr. Seaford, had explained in great detail. He was particularly long-winded and continued speaking after the bell rang. I dashed out of class as I had to go to the bathroom. The first floor bathroom was the closest. Normally, I didn't use that bathroom as that's where kids hang out that skip class, due to the proximity to the front doors, and teachers rarely used it. As I burst into the bathroom, the first stall was open. Thank goodness. I opened the wooden stall door so fast, it slammed into the toilet paper holder. I took a deep breath, happy that I had made it in time. After I finished and opened the stall door, the 3 rough girls who had spoken about my brother yesterday were standing there talking. They were always getting into fights and confrontations about anything and everything, especially boys. All had one or two children and had been held back a grade or two. Their faces were always caked with colorful makeup. I don't think there was a curse word they didn't know. Things escalated quickly. Honestly, I was afraid of them and kept my distance. When I bolted from the stall to wash my hands and head for class, one of the girls said, "So I hear you was talking to my man yesterday after school." I looked around, not realizing she was talking to me. I stopped while reaching for the paper towel. A shocked expression overwhelmed my face. "I don't know what you are talking about. I wasn't talking to anybody," I said with a high-pitched answer.
I'm going to beat that butt. I bet you remember next time.
I found myself outnumbered, fighting for my dignity and safety. The next few moments were a haze. I was fighting for what felt like my life. We were throwing blows, and then the other two girls jumped in. The melee was in full swing. That we somehow ended up in the stall, and I was worried as I was outnumbered, and I knew the teachers seldom noticed that bathroom. We kept fighting for what seemed like hours, and then two of them were on top of me. I didn't know what to do or how to get the other two girls off me. Other students, boys and girls, were now in the bathroom cheering. Fight, fight, fight. Finally, when I felt all hope was lost, I saw the two girls one at a time fly off me. I was so happy I was just crying. A slender arm pulled me up. "You all right, Tay?" Tay was the nickname given to me by my brother. He pulled those girls off me, like a true brother should. The next day, all three girls and I were summoned to the principal's office. The principal, a tall, rail-thin man with red hair and blue eyes, stood in front of his desk. He calmly turned to the three girls who sat together and asked what happened. The girl at the end of the sofa, who was named Anna, began to speak. She said I was messing with her man. It turned out girls were her sister and cousin. "She's lying," I shouted. I explained that I did no such thing. I didn't have a boyfriend. Anna interrupted. "Yes, you were." The other two girls nodded and said she was too. The principal let out a sigh and asked the name of the boy. Anna proudly exclaimed, "Anthony." I looked at the principal and screamed, "Anthony is my brother." The principal sat behind his desk and began writing bright pink suspension slips. Each girl was suspended for 30 days. From that day on, those girls never dated Anthony, nor bothered me again. I never forgot the importance of family. It was and is always great to know they have your back, especially when dealing with stupid people.